Companies are often faced with a choice of whether to hire an in-house engineering team or to outsource it. How should we look at this choice? First, when I say in-house engineering team, I mean a team of engineers, front end, back end, mobile, whatever you need, plus a CTO, plus a UX designer, plus someone playing the role of a PM. That could be a CTO, that could be someone else, right? An entire team, not just hiring software engineers. So the choice is between hiring a complete engineering team and outsourcing the project as a whole to an agency. What are the factors that go into this decision? The first factor is, do you have a budget of $1 million a year? And this is just for the engineering team. It doesn't include the marketing team or sales or cloud costs or laptops or office space, none of that. Just the salaries of the engineering team. Because those are the market realities today. And if you look at all the people who are needed to build a product, let's look at this spreadsheet. This is a hiring planner which I use in my consulting. Let's say you have a mobile, a front end, and a back end, a typical startup. And if you don't have one of these, you can always modify the spreadsheet. You need some effort, you need some manpower dedicated to feature development. Then to UX. Otherwise, you'll have something that technically works but is unusable and comes across as low quality. Is it fast enough? Is it reliable or does it have outages frequently? Is it able to keep pace with customer needs? Is it secure? Sometimes we have to research new ways of doing things. There is some maintenance in every software project. It's like maintaining your car. The story is not over when you buy a car. You have to keep spending some money every year towards maintenance. Then you need some effort for prototyping, which is building fake apps to show to customers to figure out what they want. It's not real code. Even it may not have any code at all. It may be built in a UX design tool like Figma or Sketch or whatever. I use one called Mockflow, which is very good. It's a paid one, $20 a month, but excellent. You can make a prototype very quickly, whichever you use. Because if you don't prototype, you will be prototyping with real code. You'll build a feature, launch it, then customers will tell you it doesn't work, then you'll change it, which is 10x costlier. And each of these areas of work applies to the mobile, to the front end, and to the back end parts of your project, right? So the effort is multiplied. So latency comes here and here and here, right? Now, when you add up all of these, you end up with a substantial engineering team. Here, the total comes to 26. Maybe it's lower, maybe 10 will do for you. But whatever it is, that will cost $1 million a year based on today's salaries. Now we can quibble with the number. Maybe it's 5 crores, maybe it's not $1 million. That's okay. But a single crore won't work. It has to be crores in the plural. So, do you have this budget? If you do, you can hire an engineering team. Otherwise, you should consider outsourcing. So, this is one factor. Second factor is, let's just note this down as we speak. The second factor is, can you wait a year for results? Because, and by the way, this 1 million before we move on is not for deep tech. It's 2 million if deep tech. What's deep tech? So most products don't use advanced technology. The technology is trivial. Like if you want to set up an e-commerce store to sell some product, right? There is nothing new here. The technology is boring. It has been done 20 years back. Most products are like that. The value is in the UX, in the product, in the business side of things. For example, 10-minute grocery delivery. The value is not in the technology behind it. The value is in getting the groceries in 10 minutes, right? But there are some products which are different from that. For example, FutureCam, which was my earlier startup. So you can take a photo and then change its shutter speed after capture. You can capture light trail videos, time lapses, and so on, right? You can zoom in with higher quality. This is iPhone camera app. This is FutureCam. See how much better it is? It works better at night. This is iPhone camera app. This is FutureCam. You can even see the violet color of the curtain and the contrails from the jet and stars. There's more detail. You can remove crowds. So if this guy in the blue is your friend and you're photographing him in front of a monument and there are other people coming in the way because it's a public place, like this guy in the yellow who's me and this guy in the white, FutureCam can detect and remove all these people. So you have only your friend. So all of these, if you show to an average engineer, it will not be obvious to him how to build this. This counts as deep tech, right? Anything where the technology is not obvious. And if you're doing something in deep tech, you should budget $2 million a year because it takes more time. There's a research component and so on. An in-house team also needs to have a minimum size. If you have just one front-end engineer, for example, you're in trouble when he quits, not if he quits, when he quits. Just as you can't run a restaurant with only one table, you can't run an engineering team below a certain minimum size, which in turn translates into a cost. So if your budget is small, like 20 lakh rupees, outsource it. So that's the first consideration. The second one is, can you wait a year for results? Because hiring has a 1 year lead time. It takes a quarter or two to find the right engineers. Then you make them an offer. Then they'll have a notice period of a month. Then they'll ditch you. Then you go back to step one. Then they finally join. Then it takes them 2 quarters to be fully productive. I'm not saying they'll do nothing before 2 quarters. I'm just saying they'll be partially productive. To be fully productive, it'll take 2 quarters. There's a lot of bullshit about hitting the ground running, which is one of these exaggerated Silicon Valley phrases. Ignore that. Most people don't do that. So when you add all of this together, it takes a year to produce results. So if you say today I'm going to hire, it will be March 2023 by the time you get full results. Can you wait a year, right? The other question is it just an experiment or are you ready to make a long-term commitment? Because going through all this effort and waiting a year doesn't make sense if your commitment doesn't extend far into the future for years. I mean, if it doesn't work, you can always pull the plug. That's a different conversation, but you can't plan for failure, right? You have to plan for success. So if you're just doing it as an experiment, let's just do this in a month, see whether it works out, then you should consider outsourcing. That is another factor. The other one is, are you good at working with engineering teams? Many non-technical people are not, and that's not a criticism, that's a fact. I may not be good at working with a doctor, for example, if I'm running a hospital. So that's not a criticism, it's just a fact. But unfortunately, when you have different people in a team, they all need to be cross-functional to be able to work with each other. Otherwise, it will be like women are from Venus and men are from Mars. Everyone speaks their own language, they don't gel together, there'll be friction, right? So they move away. Coordination breaks down, things don't get done, etc. So if you're doing anything in tech, whether you are doing it via an in-house team or outsourcing, you need to be good at working with engineers. If not, you should learn. And you'll fail your way to success. You won't get it right the first time. You need to go through that process to get good outcomes. So it's not something that's optional. But having said that, if you don't want to become cross-functional yet, then you should consider outsourcing because agencies are typically better at dealing with non-technical stakeholders than employees, than engineers. Let's note this down. Moving on, I was talking to a prospect last week who said, I would like to pay you a certain amount of money only if the outcome is achieved. At one level, it makes sense, right? You won't order a laptop from Amazon and pay for it unless the laptop is delivered. So, at a logical level, you want to pay only for an outcome. But the problem is, there is a certain level of risk in tech, and too much risk aversion is not good, right? So, I would say this is one of these less bad things. If you are so risk averse that you want to pay money only for success, it's not going to work out because it's an indication of other things that are wrong. There are other ways to reduce risk, like prototyping and working in an agile way. So, if a non technical stakeholder is saying this, it's a sign it's not going to work out. But still, if that is the case, you're risk averse, you don't want to spend money without a guarantee of success, you should work with an agency. Sign a contract that says, I'll pay you money only if this particular outcome is achieved by this date or whatever the terms are. The other consideration is, do you want to optimize for cost? Here's a secret of all agencies, which they don't typically tell clients, but I'll let you in on the secret. Whatever money you as the client pays the agency, two-thirds of it goes to the agency, only one-third goes to the engineer or the people doing the work. So, what does that mean? It means that you can work directly with the same engineer for one-third the money, right? For the same level of skill, right? Sometimes people don't understand this. They say, why should I pay 30 lakh per year for an engineer if I can get the entire project done with an agency for 30 lakh, let's say? The answer to that is you are working with far worse engineers if you go the agency route with 30 lakhs. And for that matter, you can hire a entry level like Infosys quality engineer for 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs or 5, whatever the current market rate is. So the point is when you account for the quality and the skill and the competence of the engineer, going through an agency costs 3x more. So just to summarize, you should do it in-house if you have a budget of $1 million a year at least, 2 million if deep tech. You can wait a year for results. You are ready to make a long-term commitment. You are cross-functional enough to work with engineers, or you're prepared to work hard to get there. If you're okay spending money without a guarantee of success and you want to optimize for cost. Based on these factors, if these hold for you, if you are going to answer yes to these questions, then you should do it in-house. Otherwise, you should outsource. If you would like me to help you think through this, happy to work with you. This is my consulting website, karthik.org, or leave a comment on this video or however it is. And thanks to Aditya, my friend and fellow CTO, for provoking this conversation.